has been pretty clear that they're not going to stimulate that much. I mean, if you look at the central bank's comments from their latest press conference, basically what they've said is they want to do some fine tuning. They'll do some adjustments around the edges, but the big sort of massive stimulus that we've been used to in China over the last 15 years, every time they put a slowdown, I don't think we're going to get that again. So I think that the key is, and that reflects a government's view that they don't need to do that much. They realize that there's a structural problem in the property sector that just has to work itself out. They're not going to help that matter by pouring lots and lots of stimulus to get people to buy houses that they don't really need. So I think the government's point of view on this is they'll do some moderate stimulus around the edges, nothing big. And if they don't quite make the 5% growth target, so be it. I think this is not really a GDP growth-oriented administration in China.
So, Arthur, you're saying that Chinese authorities don't think they need to do that much to help the economy. Is it a case of that? Or rather, there's really not much they can do short of cash handouts? Because, I mean, and give us your take on this. I mean, we've been given to understand that the crux of the problem is basically the consumer. No confidence, right? With youth unemployment up at about 20% or so, people worried about a roof over their heads, et cetera. It's forcing them to be a lot more conservative or careful with what money they do have.
Well, I think, theoretically it would be possible if the government really was determined to make 5% or whatever at all costs, they could be much more vigorous in basically putting more cash in the banking accounts of consumers. But they're obviously not going to do that. And I think that reflects two things. First of all, I think their judgment is that the problems we're seeing in the economy now are things that will work themselves out over time. There's kind of a negative confidence loop in the private sector between households and private companies. And this is the impact, the sort of the delayed impact of the COVID lockdowns that we saw last year. I think a lot of people had hoped that this was going to sort itself out quickly, but I think the government has come to the conclusion that no, this is going to take a while and they just need to be patient and wait. So they think that they're going to get the consumer activity a few quarters down the road. They don't need to push that hard. And if they try to push that hard, then they'll just be adding to the structural debt problems. So I think it's more, from the government's point of view, it's more that they don't think it's necessary to stimulate, as opposed to the idea that it's impossible for them to stimulate. Now, they could be wrong about that, but I think that's their judgment.